All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Superlite coupe build. It's sort of at the tail end of winter here in New Jersey, and I'm starting to get back into the garage. Things are starting to warm up. So in this episode, we are going to mount the front engine mount on the chassis. And I thought this would be a good episode, especially if you're building one of these cars. You know, to me, it's just not that straightforward how you drill these holes out properly. And, you know, I have sort of a hole phobia, and I just get crazy when it comes down to drilling holes in the chassis, and I have a fear it's just going to be in the wrong spot, and you know, I turn my beautiful SLC aluminum chassis into a piece of Swiss cheese. All right, but anyway, let's segue over and I'll show you what I'm up to. All right, we're looking at the top of the front engine mount, and you see a screw going into the engine bracket into the top of the front engine mount. So basically, you know, I've placed this engine mount on the frame. We've lowered the engine on the chassis. We've got the rear mounts secured. You can see them secured to the trans plate. The work that we have to do here, I'll get my trusty pointer, see if we can point some things out. So this is the front engine mount, and you can see the stanchion that the engine rests on. Now, the goal here is to drill holes through the chassis and get them perfectly centered in this bracket. So you would think maybe you could just take a center punch and just punch that out and drill the hole, but it's just not that simple. This bracket, because it was welded, it's not 100% perpendicular to the frame, either top to bottom or left to right. I don't know if I can get a good angle of it here, but you know, yeah, there you can see. It's it's squared up to the chassis and it's squared up to the engine, but when you weld things, they deform. And what I really want to do is center the hole in each side of the bracket and drill a hole, and then take that engine mount off and then enlarge the hole. So I want to drill pilot holes in the bracket, and then I'll use a 3/8 inch drill, and I'll drill through the aluminum. All right, so that's sort of the goal here, and I made a tool to do this, and I also purchased some special tools that fit in this small area. All right, so we'll segue over to the workbench. All right, so these are the tools for the job. You know, originally I was planning on using this right angle drill chuck that I bought from Harbor Freight, and I actually bought it for this purpose, but it turns out the length of this is too long to get into that particular area. You know, I moved the engine back 1.5 inches, and you know, just the angle of the frame members narrowed down in that area, and this didn't fit. So I found this handy item at Home Depot. It was like 15 bucks, and it really is a nice product. And basically it uses a hex socket. So I picked up step drills with the hex shaft, and then these stubby drills that are really short with the hex shaft. So the goal here is to drill 1/8 inch pilot holes and center them in the frame bracket, and then take the bracket off and then use the step bit and drill it out to 3/8 inch. Okay, and to center it, I basically made this tool. So this is a drill guide. It's a steel drill guide. It has some serrated teeth on it, and basically you drill out a 3/8 inch hole in the aluminum panel, and then you press it in. So it's perfectly perpendicular to the surface, and I'm going to place this end in the hole on the bracket. Here's a spacer so that, you know, it just sort of hovers over the hole, and then I'll use the angle with the small 1/8 inch drill bit and drill out the pilot holes. Then I'll use this step drill bit to drill out the holes larger. Okay, so that's the game plan. So the next segue will show this mount it on the chassis, and show you how the drill bit attached to it. All right, well, before we mount this on the chassis and start drilling, I actually have a steel U-shaped bracket that goes inside the front engine mount. So here's this right angle drill with the 1/8 inch stubby drill bit in the drill guide. And essentially this is just going to be centered in the hole. We'll clamp this on the frame, and then you'll get a perfect pilot hole using the stubby drill. All right, so that's sort of what we're going to do. It'll sort of take all the stress out of drilling these holes properly. At least that's what I hope it does. And we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so let's see how it goes. Okay, well, we got the tool clamped onto the frame, and you can see the right angle drill attachment with the drill inserted into the drill guide. Let's see if we can get another angle here. There we go. So you can see it sort of hovers above, the tool hovers above the clamp on the frame, but it's inserted into the hole, and it should be perfectly centered. So we're going to drill this out, and then we'll take a look. Okay, 1 down, 7 to go. I left the drill bit in there just so you can see how well it's centered. It's just a thing of beauty. A centered pilot hole is a thing of beauty. So anyway, I'm going to do the rest of these, and then we'll do the next step, whatever that's going to be. All right, well, we got all the pilot holes drilled out. I lifted the engine up a little bit. I was able to slide the engine mount back to expose the pilot holes. Now I'm going to drill these out to 3/8 inch, which is what we need. All right, well, let's see, we drilled those holes out using the step drill. It's actually a smidge under 3/8 inch. You know, when I measure it with the micrometer, there's not much tolerance with the size of the hole, but on both sides, the holes went right through both sides of the frame rail. So I'm really happy about that. Now I've got to see if I can get the bolts through the actual brackets. And if I can do that, then I'm sort of home free at this point. Okay, so that'll be the next step. All right, well, we got the bolts through the bracket and through the frame rail. Got the engine back on the engine mount. It all fits really good. I'm really happy with this. The bolts definitely needed a little persuasion to get through. The tolerances were too tight, so I basically took a 3/8 inch, just regular drill bit, and I could get to the holes through the, from under the car. I had plenty of room to get that drill in there, and I drilled straight through the bracket and the frame to get rid of any, any sort of slight overlap of the holes, and it worked out good. The last step is these brackets secure the front engine mount from the bottom. So I'll take those bolts out, I'll apply anti-seize to everything, and then I'll tighten this back up. So all in all, I think this approach was good. If I didn't, if I didn't move the engine back, I would have had enough room maybe to get a drill head with a larger bit into this area. But because I moved the engine back, I had to drill a pilot hole, so that's sort of the reason behind all the gyrations here. But anyway, we'll put these on and we'll call it a wrap. All right, well, here's a video from underneath the car. You can see the bottom C-clamp is attached and the bolts are through and tightened up. There's the stanchion that the engine sits on, and then we've got the same thing on the opposite side. So as you remember, this whole thing was custom made. I sort of mimicked what comes from RCR, but I was given an LS3 engine mount, and I need to make an LT4. So this thing is rock solid, that's all I can say. We'll segue over to the top of the car and then we'll call it a wrap. Alright, well there it is, the secured front engine mount to the frame. I would say the only closing comment here is, in retrospect, I think the easier approach would have been to do the pilot hole approach on just those rear outside holes on the front engine mount where the clearance is really tight up against the frame rail. And then all the other holes, and once that was drilled out, I could have put those bottom C-clamps on and just use those as guides and use the larger right angle drill with the chuck and drill those out with the 3/8 inch drill bit. The only thing is, when you drill out with a larger drill, sometimes the hole wanders, and I didn't want to enlarge those holes on the bracket and just sort of, I wanted to make sure the tolerances were really tight, and that's really what I achieved. So it's on rock solid. I'm happy with the way it all worked out. But once again, it was just a lot of work, all right? Well, thanks for watching, and take care.